Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Manufacturing Transformed. Today, I sat down and had a great conversation with Chris at Catamount Machine Works, a shop between Tampa and Orlando down in Florida. And what I love about this story so much is that Chris was a senior executive leader at very, very large multinational communications companies, telecommunications companies in all around the world. So he went from that sort of very, very corporate life with multi-billion-dollar companies to deciding to buy a machine shop because he loves manufacturing. He wanted to build something, choose where to bring his family. See, this is really sort of a greenfield opportunity for him. So he chose a machine shop down in Florida and has been investing deeply in automation, technology, and getting certifications to build a foundation to then really grow, even a more successful shop than what he already bought. And he's been doing just that, putting in a vast amount of technology over the last few years. He bought the company in 2020, 5 years ago, invested in 5-axis machining, more effective bar feeders, and then a huge tech stack, including Mastercam and HiQA and Verisurf and ProShop, and this very well-connected tech stack that he's then used very successfully to go find new business, grow new markets, and they're kind of poised for explosive growth into the next year. So it's a fun conversation. I really respect the background that he has in building systems, building the teams, the culture, from that very large company perspective and how to apply that in an effective way in a small machine shop. So it's a pretty fun conversation. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Chris, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Paul. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So I was just learning more about your business, looking at your website, which apparently is new in WordPress as you move it over from Google Sites. We've talked a little bit about some things, but you guys have a lot going on, a lot of technology, a lot of pretty neat things going on at Catamount. And so start with a little bit of the background of the business and yourself so that people can get to know you a bit.
All right. Well, you're right. We do have a lot going on. I came from the corporate world before this. I was a chief executive at the world's third largest telecommunications company. I was living in Africa. The company had 350 million subscribers. So big company. Decided, I had a young son, wasn't getting to spend the time with him that I want. And I decided that it was time to come back to the States and that we would pick where we wanted to live and buy a business, and I could come home and have dinner with the family every day. So looked around.
So you decided on a machine shop.
I did.
Of all things.
Yeah. I looked at a lot of businesses, a lot of industries, and narrowed it down to manufacturing because I like manufacturing. And looked around and eventually got to Catamount Machine Works. And I saw a company with a great reputation for quality and a lot of real estate, which is good for growth. So I set up a 3-5-10 strategic plan for the company. One of the things I didn't see a lot of was newer technology. So I saw an opportunity there. Mm-hmm. And so my plan, first focusing on employee safety and health, and then the 3 pillars that I was building over the next 3 years were focused on technology, automation, and certification. And
it's a winning combination there.
Winning combination, that's right. And so with that, we had done aerospace work for some time, but I saw the industry was changing, and I looked at how many, did some data research and saw number of shops there are in the United States and how many of them were certified, and saw it as a segment that I wanted to increase our focus on for growth, and laid out a roadmap for technology and automation, because I'd rather have a smaller shop that employs a lot of automation and technology so that we can hire really skilled team members and afford to pay them a little more and let them, share in reaping the rewards out of that strategy. And then there was the certification as well. So I can go into details of some of the things we did over that time if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, maybe just tell us a little bit about how old Catamount was, kind of what size it was, what it looked like, what industries they serve. You said they did some aerospace, but yeah, what did it look like when you bought it, and what year was that?
So that was in 2020, and there were
what month of 2020?
August of 2020.
Okay, so we were well into COVID.
Yeah, well, we were getting in there. It was ramping up.
Well,
for sure.
On the West Coast, we were well into it. Okay. Maybe not in Florida. You weren't into it as much.
And that was an interesting experience for sure. But company had already been in business for 15 years at that point.
Okay.
And they had 15 employees. And currently we have 10, and that's because of the automation that we brought and all the technology. Just quicker, more efficient, less prone to error because of automation that we could bring in and bring the company down in size. And I've had it just over 5 years now. And, through that time, we've gone from working on all paper to moving to digitize. I set up some servers, set up a production plan using, an online spreadsheet, and worked from that, and had a file management structure set up, because we looked, you could have a traveler in 22 places at once. And
you sure could.
So one of them's got it. What are on paper? What are the other 21 doing? So we went digital, put up, I had talked with ProShop because I knew I'd wanted to go to an ERP, and I looked at the way ProShop was designed and some of the setups that were recommended, and I mimicked and leveraged what you had done. And so I got 2 monitors and a computer at every workstation. They're all working off the same servers. Our data was organized. But there were some shortcomings because we had essentially adopted some practices that I inherited, but could see the pitfalls of them, like having 17 years of programs, NC programs without a standard naming convention.
Oh, yes.
Not so good. So took to organization and, setting up standard naming conventions, how you're archiving the data, because we had really good history on paper that we could go back. I remember last year I had to trace a job back 13 years and could easily do it. But the digitization took a while. And once we got that on, it was not much of an adjustment for the team. They liked going digital and having the information there. Plus, we enabled them. We got a PDF editor that they could make modifications to the work instructions, improve them, insert photos, etc. But it was laborious, right, doing that. And going to a system was a requirement. But, we had a lot of technology going on. I brought in 5-axis into the shop. We started using our bar feeders appropriately and made major upgrades to Mastercam that we use. And we switched from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. We worked towards becoming, after we got AS9100 certified, we then worked towards CMMC compliance, and we're 2.0 compliant, and we brought on Verisurf as well, high QA, and then we brought on ProShop, and then we brought on, finished with the CMMC compliance during that time period. So there was a lot of technology going over about a year and a half time period on the software side. And that was a lot of work.
A year and a half.
Yes.
Wow. That's drinking from the fire hose.
Yes. And I'm IT'd out at this point. I've got a great managed service for IT, but I need an IT breather.
Yeah. Well, and you did 5-axis, and sounded like better utilizing some of the existing equipment you had, including with bar feeders.
Yes, and it really opened us up to quite a bit of new work. And plus, we also added several robots There's times, depending when we've got the right parts, we run those 24/7 for months on end.
Wow.
So a lot of change.
Yeah, no kidding. How did you know anything about machining before you bought Catamount? I mean, you said you liked manufacturing and wanted to own a manufacturing business, but specifically machining, any background at all, or just you liked watching YouTube videos about it, or was it brand new to you?
Well, in 7th and 8th grade, I took woodshop.
Oh, that made you an expert.
that was my awesome foundation, and
I did that
other than that,
too.
Pretty dated. And no, I had very limited knowledge at the time acquired, and so through team members and through partners, I've learned a lot about CNC. And I was for a time period running machines and programming as well, but that's not my primary function, but it helped give me a foundation for the industry.
Yeah.
And it helps me make business decisions.
Yeah. Wow. That is so great. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing your incredible talent and brain to this industry from one of the largest telecom industry companies in the world. That is quite a shift. But yeah, we could use good people like you in machining. So thanks for joining us.
Well, I really enjoy it.
Awesome.
You meet so many brilliant people. I get to go into so many fascinating companies, see what they're doing, and we're helping to produce products for them. We do a lot of prototyping. We do production runs as well. And it's just exciting. At the end of the day, you get to see something that's being made in your company. And so it's exciting. And in the corporate world, having been with such large companies over the course of my career, I wanted to bring that type of organization and that type of structure to this company. We used to go around looking for a bolt for 2 hours sometimes. Now everything in this shop is labeled. Everything is organized. We have Kanban, so you can know where you need to go in the shop to find something. We use 5S. Lots just brought what is typically done in a large company to a smaller company, because I wanted it to be a company that was pleasant to come work at, that was organized, and set a foundation for growth.
That's great. I did want to ask you about just the contrast of, a huge organization and what you learned there, and just what was normal with IT systems and processes. I'm sure, I know companies can't get that big, as ProShop grows, we're putting more process in place, and that's the only way to keep it on the rails. So maybe you could, it's not on our question list, but it's such a unique position that you have been in, to go from a company like that to, a 10 to 15 person shop. Just maybe contrast what it's like in a huge company with the processes. And it sounds like, you were inspired to replicate that to some degree in a manufacturing company, and it's paying dividends if you don't need to look for a bolt for 2 hours anymore. So
yeah. So, Robert Kiyosaki quoted somebody once as saying, it's not, can you build a better hamburger than McDonald's? It's, can you create a better business delivery system? And it's about process. And so when I was in corporate, I did spend a lot of time with IT systems and learned about process flows and how the hip bones connect to the knee bone, because all these systems are integrated and interconnected, and making decisions in your architecture about where your data is going to lie, what your process flows are going to be. I was able to leverage that, having come from a larger corporate environment, and bring that in here. And even though we're a much smaller company, which helps us be very agile, there's a fair amount of complexity in the type of work that we do, especially on the aerospace side. And, you could have an assembly that you're working on that's got a variety of parts that you're manufacturing, and lots of COTS that go with it. And then there's specs, many specs that go behind that. So having that organization and understanding how, if you're going to change one system, what are the impacts going to be, and how do you ask the right questions to know what are going to be the impacts to your other systems and your processes as you Are you going to re-architect something, right? Because it's all interrelated. And even though it can be very complex in a large company, but there's still a fair amount of complexity in a small shop like this. But at the same time, everybody that's working here, their families, right? What their hobbies are, what they like to do. And so it's also very personable. And our culture is a big thing here because we have very much a team culture. And when you get in a larger organization, you've got a culture for the organization, and you can have subcultures as well in different departments or areas. And here we're all marching to the same drum. Yeah. So
nice.
Similarities and some differences.
Yeah, no, that's great. So and I like your comments about the data structure and the systems and how they kind of relate to each other. How did that inform your decisions about the technology, including ProShop, that you wanted to bring on, as you started learning more about the industry and the company itself?
Well, in business, it's very rare that you've got perfect data to be able to make decisions. And sometimes when you start talking about systems, they're so robust these days that you don't know everything. There's unknowns about those systems because there's never enough time to deep dive into them. And you have to make decisions as somewhat on a discovery basis as you're implementing the systems. And I mentioned that we went digital, stood up servers, had the data accessible. We had organization to that. We had an organizational structure to it. But then as we started bringing on other systems, such as ProShop, and also with going CMMC compliant and bringing on the Microsoft suite with SharePoint and OneDrive, et cetera, we had to look at, okay, how are we going to start deciding where we're going to house some of this, and how are we going to address the legacy data versus new projects and new data that come up.
Right.
And you map that all out, and you think you did a good job. But then sometimes you make some discoveries. Well, maybe we need to change some of this. And so it's evolved over time, but it's locked in now. And those were some big decisions, especially when you're implementing so much at one time on the technology side.
That's a ton. When you were going through your ERP selection specifically, what was it that drew you to ProShop versus some other solution?
So it took me 3 years to decide to go with ProShop.
Okay. I
talked to many different companies. One thing that was a real differentiator for ProShop, although not the only company out there, not the only solution that offers it, is that it's ITAR-compliant from how you handle your data. And so that immediately took several solutions off the table. Another thing that was different about ProShop was it was completely paperless. And there's others where their system is online, but you still do paper travelers. And didn't want to do that. I didn't want any paper.
I don't understand that.
We were already working in a paperless environment, and I did not want to go back to adding paper. But, I had built a system, if you would call it that, that once again, I took elements of ProShop to mirror it because I realized we were not ready for ProShop. That was the longest part of the 3 years. I mean, within a 6 to 9 month time period, I was able to determine that ProShop is best in class in this industry for our size of company and larger as we grow for us. And we just weren't ready to have all our data in a row, all our processes in a row, so that it would make when we finally made the decision to go with it, it would make the transition much easier. And I'm glad we did that.
Yeah, that's wise.
Yeah, and then as I've gotten in to learn about ProShop, and it's such an incredibly robust system, you can make a lot of decisions about how you want to approach things in ProShop. What you want to use, what you're not ready for, how you will evolve over time, how you can create shortcuts in the system, how there are things you just absolutely have to stick to. But I saw a system that is so robust that I knew the company could grow with it. So it was an easy decision.
Well, thank you for the trust. Yeah. I mean, just hearing you talk about your background and experience makes me appreciate the decision even more, that someone with your, really, having seen the way big companies work and sort of best in class or best practices, saw that ProShop could do that or was doing that in a way that was compatible with, what you had done before. So I don't know, it's validating for me. So thank you very much for that trust.
Absolutely. I'll add one thing. Like if you look at some of the mega corporations out there, some products they may typically use on their ERPs may be like Oracle or SAP, for example. Those are very large systems, very complicated
orders
systems.
Of magnitude.
And
yeah.
I remember I worked at one company and they had a $30 million project and for their new ERP. And at that point, when I entered the company, they were at 300 million with no end in sight. I was at another company.
300 million for the ERP.
For the ERP. I was at another company where we had 250 million into it before we decided to pull the plug. One of the problems with large corporations, like I said, there's never perfect data when they come in and they're doing analysis, conducting gap analysis, and they're bringing a best-in-class system. And they've got these unique things they've been doing offline outside of the system, and they want to try to change this best-in-class system to their offline processes, and they wind up taking things offline, or worse yet, doing customization into these systems when they've already got functionality that's superior, but they're not familiar enough with it. And so it leads to a lot of expense that grows over time because of those customizations that don't automatically update as they do them. And with ProShop, you keep it all in ProShop. And so that's was really appealing.
Huh. Okay, very good. So with the system you built prior, did you envision that was just going to kind of be your prototype for a few years? As get the company ready, get more process based, and then buy something? Or did you have a thought that could be the tool that you use forever?
Oh, no, it wasn't robust enough and it wasn't interconnected. And so It meant a lot of duplicate work or revisiting files. And so, I looked at ProShop and I said, this is the system we're going to go with. Let's get these processes in line. Let's stand this up temporarily to mimic components of it. But one of the real pros I saw with ProShop is everything's interconnected. You can go from an estimate to a part, to a quote, to a PO, to a work order, to invoicing, and it's all interconnected. And you've got traceability for different rev levels for each time you run a job, and you're not going out of the system to look for that. It's all there in one system. And that was I wanted to set up something to mimic that and to help us get our data in line so that we could do that transition again and make it a quicker and easier transition. And it worked. Mm-hmm. It wasn't without issues, right? As with any major implementation, but it worked.
Sure. Yeah. Well, your story of the $250 million investment before pulling the plug just blows my mind. I mean, hopefully the company was big enough that it didn't tank the whole company, because
it was big.
That's yeah, the scale of companies out there, it's hard to it boggles the mind sometimes. So yeah, when I'm going to come visit you in a couple of weeks, and we'll have a beer and just talk about companies, because I'm curious.
Sounds good.
So after you put ProShop in, got through the training process, the learning curve, and had it up and going, what were some of the things that you saw change or improve with everything connected, and I guess the less labor intensive thing that you had kind of prototyped yourself?
Well, you just said it, less labor intensive.
Okay.
Because I'm not having to revisit various files because it's all in the system. And because we have multiple people working in the system, they know exactly where to go versus before they didn't necessarily know where to go. They didn't all have the same access levels. They still don't have the same access levels. But if I'm working with our director of operations, I can say, hey, can you prep this on this estimate for me?
Mm-hmm.
And she can do it. I can pick it up right from there to do any refinements that need to be done and take it on from that point to get through, of course, the part and the quote to send to the customer. And then she can pick it right up on the PO side, on the inspection side. We balloon our drawings in high QA and create our forms, and we import them into ProShop. And we've got different people doing that work, and they all know where to go in the system. So it brought a lot of organization, and it saved a lot of time, and it helped reduce errors as well. Mm-hmm. The director of operation and I are still admins on the system, and we've got a process to go back and validate when a project is done, if everything's been documented correctly. But with that, we can control the data and help avoid errors as well. So it's saved a lot of time.
With your shifting from 15 to 10 people, where did those folks come out of? Are they machinists? Are they office? A little bit of each? Or
it was primarily in the machinist side. We had brought on so much automation with the 5-axis. We'd have projects that would take sometimes 7 operations, and you can reduce it to 2. Right? You've got robots you can run 24/7 for months, and that reduces labor a lot. Mm-hmm. And so we were able over time to bring that number down to where we currently are. And we also, you did a presentation. I mentioned this to you, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 ago, where it was about growing your company. And you're like, which one was that? You do so many videos, right? But you talked about, all right, I want you to lay out your current org chart, and then I want you to lay out an org chart for what it's going to be, where you're going. And with ProShop, it really helped define roles in the company. And we had, by small example, we had a programmer machinist here, fantastic programmer, and he was moving. Because we're CMMC compliant, he can dial into the systems. And we are able to have him pick up some of the inspection responsibilities, besides just programming, we could have him pick up, prep for the high QA, helping upload documents, doing validation, preparing content. And with just thinking about that org chart and where do you want it to go, it's really helped define the structure of this company, because we're at a point now, we've got our foundation in place. We're ITAR-compliant, we're JCP certified, we are, of course, AS9100 and ISO certified, and the list goes on. And this foundation is in place now. And at the core of that is ProShop. And this is something now that we can scale. And we've been working on many different prototype programs. And our first we've been told, is going to go to production in Q1 of 2026. And we've got likely within first half of 2026, we're going to add at least 2 more, possibly 3 that are going to production. Knock on wood, right? They got to get through the gates for approval and all, but that's going to mean a lot more work for this company. And it is going to mean getting some new equipment, getting some additional people. I anticipate hiring quite a bit in 2026. But because we've got this foundation leveraging technology like ProShop, ProShop's in the center of it, and these others feed into it, it's very scalable. So we don't need to change our process going forward. we may change some of the roles of the new people that we bring on to help diversify some of the work and have additional redundancy. But that foundation is in place so that we can grow. And so we're pretty excited about what's coming.
Well, I appreciate the words about the presentation, and I'm glad it was valuable to help think about how you wanted to, position your company in the future. That was the goal of that presentation.
Yeah, well, it was spot on, Paul. But, as a business owner, small business owner, you're wearing a lot of hats and you have a lot to think about. And what I liked about that presentation and many others that I've watched is there's advisory. You're not just buying a system. There's advisory that comes with it. And because you got so much in your mind, so many different things you're doing, you don't always have time, even though you're familiar with those things based on your background potentially, that you need to be thinking about something and taking the company in that direction. And with that advisory, it's an enabler to help assist you for the things you're not necessarily thinking about.
Sure. Yeah. That talk you referenced was one of the very earliest things I ever did at ProShop publicly, and that was speaking at the Top Shops conference in 2017. And it was the franchise prototype. You mentioned McDonald's.
Yes, that's the one.
McDonald's.
That's the one. And Paul, I don't care if it was 2017 or today,
2017.
or in 10 years, that will still be completely valid.
Right. Oh, I fully believe in the principles of it. I mean, none of that is my work. That's all from the E-Myth, right? The book, The E-Myth with Michael Gerber. So that was such an influential book for me and our company early on that some of those principles we baked into the way ProShop works, right? So yeah, that's awesome. That feels great.
Why don't we talk about one of the things I really like about ProShop? Okay. I've already talked about several things, right? But that one-click FAI, we absolutely love, because we were preparing documents offline. We'd have to go to different sources to get information. When we're doing a purchase order for material, that cert gets stored in ProShop and it's there. When we're entering data in the system, it's there. When we need a COC, it's there. And it's all created with one click. And that is a fantastic time saver. So wasn't one of your questions, but it's one of the features I really like.
That is a pretty awesome feature. I didn't design it. I was probably sure it was Kelsey and some of the other guys that conceived of how it would work, and then Matt executed it on the software side. But yeah, it is kind of a magical feature. We had one customer, and you might have seen this case study when you were doing research on ProShop, but it was a pretty good sized shop in Texas, about 80 people. And when I was interviewing their president at the time for the article, he said we saved them 96% of the time that it took to make an FAI. So, and I'm sure it varied depending on the project, but, some of them took 12 hours, right? Or a couple of days just to put together hundreds and hundreds of pages, because they did big assemblies and turned into one click.
Yeah. And in addition to that time savings, there's more time savings because it reduces errors because of the automation. If a machinist or an inspector is entering data into the inspection form in ProShop and they make an error, fat finger something, it's going to tell them, right? And they can correct it right there. And instead of relabeling documents and as you're consolidating and forgetting to include something, it's all automated. So that reduces errors, and errors are expensive. So saves time and money.
I'm glad you love it. I guess that's question number 13. What's one ProShop feature you just can't live with anymore, or can't live without anymore? And it would be, maybe for you, it's that one. And you've already kind of alluded to this. We hear people call ProShop the backbone of their company, and you've already kind of alluded to it. You've now built, ProShop and the other tools you've selected. You've built this foundation that you can scale on, and very scalable, just plug in more bodies and more machines as you grow your revenue. But the foundation of the systems, I guess, are solid for years to come.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, I know we're not going to disclose revenue. No one ever does, but you've clearly seen growth, I'm guessing, from 2020 when you bought it to now, even with less people, just all the automation. And the reason I kind of asked this is we've been, with the Making Chips podcast, we've been doing this Machine Shop MBA series in collaboration with Modern Machine Shop magazine. And of course, being a top shop, which, it's sort of that survey and that conference, which actually will be before this episode releases. We will have already done that a couple of weeks prior, but they talk about revenue per employee and revenue per machine and even profitability, and the shops that embrace technology are about 3 times more profitable than shops that don't, right? And certainly that's got to be related to the fact that they have quite a bit higher revenue per employee, because they invest in both machine automation, software automation, and just build, these sort of high-tech, robust foundations to grow on. Do you feel like that adoption of technology and automation has helped you scale revenue without having to add a bunch of bodies? And has that made a meaningful difference over the last 5 years?
Absolutely. With bringing in so much automation, and that's both on the shop floor and in the front office and all of our systems, it, helped us reduce the head count on the employees. And once again, that helped us get more skilled employees and help them share in the rewards of that. But, if you look in the shop side of it, where you've got robots and bar feeders running, you can get a lot out that way. When you look at doing 5-axis, you're opening yourself to a whole new world of capabilities for parts that you can produce. And there are shops out there that are 3-axis or 4-axis, like this company was when I acquired it, that don't have 5-axis. And so they're missing out on that revenue opportunity. And it can be an opportunity for higher margins with that type of work, because there are less that are capable of doing it. And, if you move into the front side, I mentioned high QA as an example. High QA, we used to do ballooning of drawings where we'd do them in pencil, go left to right, top to bottom. Another guy would go bottom to top, right to left. Another would go in circles. They'd skip things by accident. Then, right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 76. 5, 6, 7, 8, and now we've got a standard with that, and it's something that we cut more than 80% of the time off from doing that. I would take that example and apply it to our programming, because the upgrades that we did, we were running Mastercam 8 and 9 in 3-axis, and now we run 5-axis, and we're also looking at tools, AI tools, to bring in additional automation to cut out mundane tasks, because we're doing a lot of prototyping, and programmers, they're hard to get, and they're usually your highest paid role, and you can help get a lot more productivity out of that. Take that same example and use it for ProShop, right? Because we've got so much more automation in the system from the interconnectability of it, and things like the one-button click on the FAIs, cutting time there, significant amounts of time. That reduces the amount of time in manufacturing. Time is money, and it affects how profitable you can be. And so by employing all this technology, it has certainly helped for profitability.
Have you applied to the Top Shops survey ever?
I have not.
Okay. Are you familiar with it?
I am familiar with it, but being a small company and a business owner, the most limited commodity I have is time.
It's your time.
Yeah. And we have a lot of other things going on. I don't have it readily at my fingertips here, but we were a rock star for 2026 in IMTS.
Yeah, for IMTS. That's right.
We've got
Congratulations.
a lot of videos going on right now. We've done videos with Haas because of our robots work. We've done one with MSC, one with Catamount. We got another one coming out, an article coming out with Catamount. We've got a video coming out with Mastercam. We recently did a podcast, and we've got 6 other videos that are upcoming and multiple other articles and all. And this is taking a lot of time. So top shops have not applied, but that's something I'll be looking into when I get some more time.
Yeah. I mean, what you've taken on in such a short period is I would expect a normal shop to take that on over like 10 years, not over, a couple of years. So really remarkable. But, I do think Top Shops is a fantastic tool to even just be a part of sort of the ecosystem, to see really what the top performing shops are doing and how it sets them apart. The benchmarking part of it shows you where kind of the average shops sit in like 20 or 30 different KPIs, and then where the top shops lie. And it's really interesting. But I would guess you would probably land in that top 20th percentile with what you've done, because technology adoption is one of the biggest differentiators in shops that are, not performing at their highest, and the ones that are really sort of in that top 20th percentile of performance.
Well, and perhaps there's a lot of good shops out there that are doing a lot of good things, and they're embracing technology, right? I don't know if it was maybe Lee Iacocca or Snoop Dogg said grow or die. And, it's technology. You don't ride a horse to work, you drive a car. That's technology. And it's the same thing in this industry and many other industries. We're in the technology age, and in a very interesting part of the technology age with all the AI that's starting to come out. And I know we were chatting a little bit about that before we started this podcast, but I'm excited to see what ProShop is bringing for the future too, because these are all enablers that save time.
Yeah. No, it's very exciting times for sure. So just a couple more questions here. Sometimes this is hard to quantify, so if you don't have an answer, that's fine. But have you have a sense of any kind of ROI that you've had with ProShop?
I don't. That is difficult to quantify, especially with all the other projects we've had moving in tandem with it.
Yeah, it's not like you have one variable changing. You have like 10 all at the same time.
That's right. And I believe it's going to change as the company scales. Because the foundation is set, and it's not like we'll be evolving in perpetuity. We have a robust quality management system statement, but we have a simplified version, which is the customer's king, make good parts, get better and better. And that get better and better, part of that is we've got very much a team environment here where people teach each other. It's not a competitive environment at all. People just want to do a good job and get better and better. And technology is a big part of that. But because we've got this foundation, even though it will evolve, it's set at this point. And so the return on investment will only increase as we continue to grow. And so I don't have figures at this point in time, but I can confidently say that the ProShop has been worth the investment.
Awesome. Very good. I want to shift gears for a minute and ask you about some of one or two of the most memorable experiences you've had owning a shop. Obviously, you came from such a different world.
Yes. Yeah, there's some good ones and not as good ones in there. But I think one of the most memorable is having taken on all this technology at the same time. That was a lot of change, and the team stuck with the company going through that because they could see the vision, and it was a lot of change. And I think particularly on the IT side, we have an IT managed service, NTG, Northern Technologies Group, that's fantastic that helped get us to the CMMC 2.0 compliance. But that brought a lot of change and how it impacted the systems and getting through those issues. But if I looked at that collectively for all these systems that we implemented and upgraded, it's definitely the most memorable thing that we've had. And honestly, there were times when it was painful, but it was worth it.
Sure.
So glad we did that. That's one.
Well, let's just stick on that one for a minute, and we'll get to the second one here. But you mentioned the team sticking with you, but they could see the vision. And I think there's something really wise in that technology adoption and change management is obviously a really complicated and tricky subject at times. The fact that you alluded to that major ERP failure, in that massive company is indicative of it can get so hard, right? But and even in small businesses, it can be very, very hard. But having alignment on the team and everyone believing in the reasons and the path, I think is one of the most foundationally critical things. And so did you invest a bunch of time in setting that vision and making sure everyone knew the why behind what you wanted to do? Because we've seen it done well and not as well. And sounds like you had good alignment. And what are some of the tips that you would give to others about getting that alignment?
My philosophy on leadership is a good leader is somebody who has a vision, can communicate it to others to see it come to fruition without creating a mess in the wake. And that communicating is very important. Here's where we're going. It's going to be a bumpy road to get there, but we will get there. And these are the benefits that are going to come out of it. We had weekly meetings and training sessions for all these new technologies that we were bringing on, and reminders about here's where we're going. What challenges are you experiencing? How can we address those? If we can't address them immediately, here's when we think we can address them. And let it be an open dialogue for the team to give feedback so that they could be part of it. And, them being able to see that vision and helping to see it come to fruition is something I think they found was rewarding. There were definitely some challenging moments in there for team members. I didn't have an IT managed service when I put the foundation in for the CMMC, and knew I needed to bring one on to help see that to completion. And so I had to be the IT manager, and I'm not an IT guy. And so that created challenges, but the team saw the point. They liked going digital. They liked moving to systems. They liked the organization that the systems brought. And they could see, even though there were challenges, they knew they would get worked out. They could see the benefits that it was going to bring. And by having that open and regular dialogue, it helped us get there faster than if someone's, going to buck the system or fight change, because they got to be part of it. And I feel very fortunate to have the team we have now.
That's fantastic. Yeah, there's no better feeling in my mind than just having great people that are aligned and enjoy working together, and they're bought into the vision and just all working together, rowing the boat in the same direction. It's a great feeling.
Absolutely. And, even with all this technology, if you've got the wrong culture or the wrong team, it's not going to succeed. Systems are enablers, but at the end of the day, it comes down to people. That's what really makes the difference.
That's well said. So let's come back to your second most memorable experience with the shop.
I really liked it when we got our first robot. That was a game changer. That was a real game changer. We were the second, we're 100% Haas shop, and we have the Haas robot package 1. And when we got that, I saw that as a real enabler to help with profitability, with getting product to a customer much quicker, because you can run it 24/7. And that was a big step. We were, like I said, the second one in Florida. So we were kind of on the early adopter.
Bleeding edge. Yeah.
Yeah. And seeing it took us a while to figured out the biggest issue with them was figuring out the chip cycle and how you manage that, because you're running them 24/7. But the robots in general they're a nice memory and a good investment.
What machines do you have your robots on?
We've got them on 3 Haas VF2s, and two of them have TRT 160 5-axis, 3+2 trunnions in them, and the other use pneumatic vices. The other uses hydraulic vices, and that one's got a little different setup because we can run, depending on the parts, 8 parts at a time. A lot more robot programming when you do that, but
of course,
same robot, same machines in all of them.
Oh, nice. And your 5-axis must be a UMC then.
Actually, we don't have any true 5-axis. They're all 3+2. We've got 4 of them at this point.
Got it.
But, we were at the Haas demo days today looking at the new UMC 750 that they've got, and we're looking at an impeller being made on it. And we're like, that's number 2 on our CapEx list for next year.
Yeah. Well, candidly, there's so few parts that actually need true 5-axis. I mean, if you're making impellers, yes, but most parts 3+2 will get you going all day long, right? So.
Yes. And I think it's the window that interests us a lot for going to a true 5-axis. Just being able to do bigger parts. So, because usually your Z is the limiting factor in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. All right. Maybe this is a softball question, but what would you say is some of your best strategic moves you've made with growing your shop?
Well, I think it's the strategy that I initially put in place that was focused on employee safety and health and technology, automation, and certifications. This would lead to a pivot for the company in the type of business that we would do, the type of products we'd be able to develop, the type of work we would get to do in more in the aerospace industry, and also profitability. So that's what I would say was the strategy that has led to where we are today, and that will fuel our growth going forward.
Yeah. Well, maybe as a tangent to that, when you put all that in place, you then need to have the work to fill the machines and finish the strategy. How did you find that work? Do you have a sales team? Did you shift? I've talked to many companies that have shifted industries or want to shift industries, but sometimes the obstacle of finding new customers in those industries and actually winning purchase orders and contracts is their biggest obstacle. So what did you do to find that work?
Well, first, we had to have the foundation in place. We did not advertise for the first 4 years because I didn't feel we were ready to advertise. I didn't have that foundation in place. And we did pick up a new aerospace. We had several aerospace clients already, but we picked up a new, rather large one, started with a small order, went to a bigger order, another grew into a great relationship. And then we went and did a couple trade shows, and that brought leads to us. And we worked those leads. I mean, you asked who's the sales team. I'm the primary, and we've got 2 others that are, filling other roles. Our director of operations and our shop foreman as well helps. But we worked those leads over the course of the year and brought on new customers. Some are like, well, you know what, maybe this isn't the best fit. And as you're bringing on new customers, you figure that out as you're working through them. You vet them through the process, but we went through a lot of different audits with the new customers, et cetera. But, we'll continue on that strategy. But this year we picked up 2 very large new aerospace customers that are driving a lot of growth, and that will be leading. We're doing prototyping that's going to lead to production, and most likely, and that brings a lot of growth. Now we got 6 different companies that we can say, hey, we're doing business with these companies, and we're going to keep doing trade shows. However, we're going to shift and start going more to an online strategy, because your website is your portal to the world and the way that people find you. And now that we've got the foundation in place and the credentials, somebody can come to our website and they can say, hold on, this looks like a player. They've got these great customers. Let's talk to this company. And, I had one couple of months back that approached us, a very large OEM, and how did you find us? He said, well, we did an AI search. They're far away, several states away from us. And they said, we did an IA search and you were one of the 3 companies that came up in the search. So you mentioned before going from Google Docs to WordPress. I've still got more work to do on that platform to get the website to where it needs to be. But with that, we set up backlinks, meta tags, et cetera, and it's helping to drive attention to the company. So more of our focus will be moving in that direction on the marketing side going forward. But you're not wrong, Paul. It's very difficult to get on a B2B side with a new company. You can go and fill out their portals, and in some regards, it's like a black hole, right? Yeah, and so it's about how can you make those connections. And one way that was very successful for us was participating in trade shows.
Very cool. That's great. That's a great tidbit. Maybe another little side tangent. I keep coming up with them. When you had those customer audits, and this is a little self-serving because on Friday in 2 days, I have a presentation that I'm giving, which will long since be done when this releases. But it's called, and it's for another group, but it's called "Your Tech Stack is Your Best Sales Tool." And I'm curious to know, with your incredible tech stack, did you use that in your sales process to show your customers why you were going to be such a robust, solid, reliable supplier?
Absolutely. Showing them that, our certifications, how we, here's where we keep our calibration certs for everything. Here's where our files are stored. Here's our traceability that we have in the system. Here's the standardization that our systems have. Here's an example of a product that comes out of our systems that will mirror what you're going to see when you get it from us. Mm-hmm. So being able to leverage top name brands in the industry for technology that they already recognize, like ProShop, it resonates with them and instills confidence. So it is definitely at the forefront of our conversations when we're talking to new clients.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Last question before we ask how people want to get a hold of you. If you can imagine today what your shop would look like if you hadn't decided to choose ProShop, what that might be like?
It'd be hard to function. It would be difficult to function because there were too many inefficiencies from the data not being interconnected. And I don't think we could be doing some of the work that we're currently doing if we didn't have it. Our system that I developed just were not robust enough and were not interconnected enough to function on the more complex assemblies that we're getting into. Just that data management and having it in one place and being able to trace it as you're doing repeated jobs. It's critical for being able to operate now and going forward. And we couldn't be doing we could of course be doing some of the work that we're doing now, but we couldn't have been doing all of it. And once again, we're anticipating significant growth in 2026. And because we have this foundation, that's more data, that's more complexity, but it's all sitting on the same structure. And so that's it. It's not only couldn't be here doing this, couldn't be doing what we see in the future either. So that's how it's enabled us. And you asked, how can people get a hold of us? That's how you started that question. I believe.
Yeah, that was my next thing after this one. So yes.
Yeah, our website is www.catmw.com. That's short for Catamount Machine Works.com. And we've got a contact form on there. You can learn more about our company there. And you can also give us a call at 813-659-0505.
Okay,
if you want to email
perfect.
us, info@catmw.com.
I like the nice, short, concise website. That is good. That is easy to remember. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing everything you did. It really is an honor to provide some tools to help you guys maximize what you're doing at your company. I'm excited for your future. It's great to hear you have this incredible foundation and all the investments you've made in certifications and machine and culture and people. I know we're just going to propel you, and it's truly an honor to be a small part of that system that you've built. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate you having me on the podcast today and everything that your team has done to make the system what it is today, and that you're constantly evolving and making it better and easier for us. So very appreciative.
Great. Well, I look forward to meeting you in person before too long.
Sounds good. Take care, Paul.
Thanks, Chris.